My money don't jiggle jiggle mid folds. I can see you wiggle wiggle. And sorry, let's just date this podcast real quick. um, hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com. Photo, video, digital media production. Today we're discussing The Ring 2. The Ring 2 is a 2005 American supernatural psychological horror film and a sequel to the 2002 film The Ring, or The Ring, which was a remake of the 1998 Japanese film Ring. Hideo Nakida, Nakata, I think. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Is the director of the original Japanese film Ring, on which the American versions are um, based on. He directed this film in place of Gore Verbinski. Norm Murrow was attached before Nakata, but left due to creative differences. This film was shot in Astoria, Oregon, and Los Angeles, California. It was released on March 18th, 2005. And although it was met by generally negative critical reception, it opened in the United States with a strong 35 million on its first weekend, more than doubling the opening weekend of The Ring, original 2002. Its final 76 million domestic gross was less than the original's 129 million, but it took 87 million internationally for a total gross of 163 million dollars, which I believe the worldwide gross for the original was 250 million. So it's coming in short. Written by Erin Kruger, same guy as the original film, and it is the second installment in the Ring film series, and was followed by Rings 2017. And by the second installment, I mean it's the second installment in the U.S. franchise. So it's bringing back Naomi Watts, Simon. We have Simon Baker, David Dorfman, Elizabeth Perkins, Gary Cole, and I'm going to leave some big names for the spoiler section. Cinematography is Gabriel Bernstein, which is a departure from Craig. Was it? Um, who was the? Geez, let me see. The other was Bahol Perez or something like that. Bohan Bazeli, who works in core collaboration with Gore Verbinski a lot for the other films that they work on. But this time he does not come back for the second one. The second one is the cinematographer is Gabriel Bernstein, notable for working on numerous films, including The Distinguished Gentleman, The Spanish Prisoner, Blade 2, Street Kings, and several entries in the MCU, including, let me see if there's any MCU movies I can tell you off the top of my head. Blade 2, SWAT, Blade Trinity, Ring 2, the Black Widow. Okay, so that's where the other and Agent Carter. I believe that's an MCU short film. Okay, so that is the cinematography for The Ring 2. Let me see what else we need to bring back. New editor, Michael Canu. Music by Henning Lohner, Martin Tillman, and original themes composed by Hans Zimmer. Made on a budget of $50 million, which the other one was $48 million. So they definitely tried to keep this one on the lower end as well. Let me see what else we have. 110 minutes, which puts this as, what is it, just under 2 hours. But 150 minutes, or sorry, an hour and 50 minutes We still feel like this is a little bit long of a film. I definitely feel like the pacing of this second film does not match the pacing of the first one and the story progression of the first one. So, with saying all that, clearly this movie was not exactly brought together in the same realm as the first one. I thought the first one had a little bit better direction, had the music composed by Hans Zimmer, has the editing of one of the, I think it's Craig Wood was the editor in that one. He works alongside Verbinski a lot. They didn't have those uh formulated gears of individuals together. So it definitely feels like a different type of movie when watching this one. Um, since it's released in 2005 on March 18th, that's 3 years after the first one, the anticipation was probably growing a bit. I'm surprised they couldn't crank this out a little bit faster, to be honest. Maybe there was more CGI that they had to implement in this one. But having it come out on March 18th tells me that they didn't think that it was going to be a big seller in the Halloween spectrum, or maybe they had DreamWorks might have had something else coming out during then. I don't have any knowledge to that, but I think that The Ring probably should have stayed within the September October release schedule to kind of keep that momentum building for, oh, maybe we get these every couple Halloweens or something like that. So, what is going on with the the Ring 2? Is there reasoning to have the Ring 2? Like, uh, what is the whole notion of the Ring 2? It's ironic because I don't see any of the plot on here without going into too many big spoilers. Let me see if I can get this right here. So, 6 months after the incidents of in involving the lethal videotape, new clues prove that there is a new evil lurking in the darkness. And to be honest, without going into spoilers yet, I don't know if there's a new evil or if the original evil was ever quite stomped out, you know? Um, Obviously there's going to be spoilers for the first movie because this is the sequel to that one. Um, but basically they buried the big bad at the end of uh the Ring original, you know? Was the Ring original in 2002 was basically solved by the end of that. 2002 they had this they brought the introduction of Samara, this creepy ass girl that was tortured and basically killed by her parent, her mother. Um, in the first one, is she's laid to rest after she was thrown down a well for several years, and I don't feel like there was any correlation of why this Samara creepy ass character was haunting people through a videotape of images about her life. I guess that was kind of like, I guess that makes sense. The haunting I can get. I can totally get behind. My big bugaboo about the original Ring was that the VHS tape, the haunted VHS tape, felt like a MacGuffin. It felt like a reason to sell the film. But once you got in there, you were really um you're really focused on this, underlying tone of this girl that was basically abused as a young person and thrown down a well, and now she haunts people. Um, I think that we've seen the creepy kid storyline numerous times. I just watched Insidious not too long ago, and I feel like that kind of had that kind of realm of that about it. Um, and of course, this is based off of I think it's a manga of the original Japanese film of 1998. I think it's a manga, but don't, take my word for it. Um, take my word for a grain of salt. I don't have that off the top of my head. Um, But anyways, let's uh let's continue on with a little bit of behind the scenes and just overall thoughts about this movie before we get into spoilers. Overall, I do feel like the pacing is a lot slower. The scares are not as scary. The story focuses so much more on Rachel's son, Aiden, David Dorfman's character, and I think David Dorfman as a child actor does a pretty damn good job at portraying like horrified and scary imagery at the same time. I will say that uh, the way he talks and interacts with his mother, he feels like a grown ass man. It's like, oh my goodness. They kind of feel like they took a page out of the book of the Sixth Sense a little bit with it too, with the whole creepy kid kind of thing. And I'm not gonna spoil that or anything like that. So if you've seen that, you know what I mean. Let me see if there's anything else that we want to talk about this before we hop into spoilers. Like I said, the movie feels like it definitely has. I don't think that the set pieces are as strong in The Ring 2. Um, the characters feel a little bit less tied to each other. Like we had the ex-boyfriend in the first one. We had the cousin in the first one. Like I don't really feel like there's tons of like um characters that really are interwoven into this story that make it nearly as interesting. So when if they are disposed of, do we care about them? And to my you know to me, I was like, yeah, I didn't really care about that guy anyway. So I was like, oh, fuck them. If they're not part of the main first two on the cast list, then they're probably going to be fine, kind of thing. But not to say that either one of these two come out fine. We don't know that yet. We're not in the spoilers. Um, Let me see anything else. So, with saying all that, yeah, The Ring 2 just elaborates on the story of Samara, understanding her, um, where she came from a little bit more, understanding her terrible abusive background, her original parents, that type of thing. Um, it kind of answers questions to things that I really didn't have, and questions to from the first movie. It doesn't really. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the VHS tape of watching a tape and dying after 7 days doesn't feel like it holds grip over this movie like it did the first one, as like a MacGuffin of to or a gimmick of why you should watch the film. This one just feels like, oh, it's in the film and don't worry about it after you watch if someone watches the tape, don't worry about it. It's like, let's keep it moving. We got to keep it moving. And so, with saying that, I just don't feel like it holds, it doesn't hold it down like the first one. Like the first one has kind of a level of camp to it. There's a level of mystery, and sometimes majority of the time, the mystery was interesting to follow. This, I feel like it does drag in some bits, and they kind of do uh tropey horror things, like the ghost can only be seen in photos and stuff like that. We've seen this throughout the years. And I'm not sure if this is like one of the best uses of it. I feel like sometimes they've done it even better in more recent movies. Um, so there are like scary movie tropes that happen. I don't think there's many jump scares in these two movies as I was expecting. Most of the scares are just like they go for it, like shit happens. Um, but I will say The Ring 2, I feel like it could have been shaved 20 minutes. Um, they needed to just kind of tap into this story. If they were going to continue on with the Rachel Aiden story, I think that there was different ways they should have done it. Um, but this one is way more about the paternal aspects of Samara's family and how that they treated her good, treated her bad, that type of thing. And kind of relating it to how Rachel is as a mother, and they kind of dive in a little bit about her as a mother, kind of like it's almost like a small critique on like being a parent and being a quote unquote being a good mother. It's sometimes a little bit uh less subtle in this movie than it is in the first one. And yeah, with saying all of that, I would probably give it a 5 out of 10. It's just doesn't hit those same beats as the first one does. If this had come first and the first movie came second, I would say that the second movie would have been superior. This is not one of those situations where, it's only be the first time you see it. I just feel like this movie is it's got kind of that extended series syndrome, which in my opinion would be like if these were on Netflix, that these would be the last two episodes that just kind of ended on a fine note. It didn't leave on a high note, but left on a fine note. And again, I've only seen the first two Ring movies, so I watched them within the last like 2 days, and so I'm kind of like got them back to back in my head. So if I kind of jumble the two together a little bit, bear with me. But with saying that, let's hop into the spoilers for this PG-13 hour and a half, hour and 50-minute movie. Um, and yeah, be sure to check out patreon.com/lookitupodcast. You can get this full review in full and reviewed on the patreon.com/lookitupodcast. And you can get this review early. You could be listening to this months, weeks, way, way, way early if you wanted to, through the Patreon and supporting us on there. You'll have the limited cut on the YouTubes and on the SoundClouds for everybody. But yeah, I will say this is about a 5 out of 10. And it's not because I hated it. It's just because more than anything, I found it boring. I found a lot of the scares kind of repetitive. There's only so many times a creepy ass girl with long black hair can come out of a well and crank her neck around looking all crazy and shit like that, and it scared me as the audience. I'm not looking for like torture porn or anything like that. I'm not looking for any of that type of stuff, but I am looking for something, a propelling story that really emphasizes and goes into the ins and outs of the story progression line. Honestly, the way this movie begins, it feels like they're trying to move in a separate direction a little bit, maybe kind of showing like a different story. Um, but maybe they should have done like the aliens type thing. Maybe make it more of an action film. Maybe make it more of uh, a cerebral psychological thriller. I feel like the first one was very much that, but even more so. I almost wanted them to kind of choose a lane a little bit, because it feels like they're just kind of mining at the bit of, oh, we just need more Samara, more creepy images, but we're not going to really emphasize or elaborate on any of the other characters or the world that we're living in. And we're going to kind of make the main character, have kind of ridiculous motivations and not really do the proper thing that a mother should probably do in this situation. But then again, I guess that could go along with the part of critiquing parenthood a bit. Is The Ring 2 basically just a critique on being a parent? I'm not saying it is. I'm just like, it feels like it could be trying that a little bit down that road. So let's hop into the spoiler section. Like I said, the full review is on patreon.com/podcast. You will get an edited review for the YouTubes and everywhere else you are listening to this, SoundClouds or whatever. Be sure to check out LuckyDogPodcast.com for the full library and ways you can support the podcast. Thank you for listening, watching Look It Up Podcast. Let's hop into the ring, the rang that rang to. I tell you, I've got the fan running right now, and my lips are so dry. I can't get enough of this cold coffee. Maybe I should have had a water on deck, but we'll save that for next time. So, yeah, there were some big names in this that I don't think I knew were in this film. I wished in the first movie when I was watching it, we're getting ready to talk spoilers. Or this is the spoiler section as I speak. Um, the big name that I didn't want to bring to the first movie was Brian Cox. I didn't tell everybody that he was in the movie until we actually got into the plot of the film, and I was thoroughly surprised to see him in this, um, in The Ring, but, knowing that he died, so he's not in The Ring 2. Technically, he probably could have been, but he's probably too expensive to have by 2005 standards. Um, so let me see what else we got in here. So let's hop into the plot of The Ring 2. Crank my neck. Let me crank my neck. Oh, there we go. Here's the plot for The Ring 2. 6 months after the events of the first film and immediately following the events of the short film, Rings, Samara Morgan's cursed videotape has been circulating through teenagers in Austria, I think that's what it's called. Astria, Oregon. Jake Pierce is on his 7th day as per tape rules and asks his friend Emily to watch the tape. And this is played by Ryan Merriman, who's I've seen him on Disney. I've seen him on other films as well. I can't think off the top of my head, but Final Destination was the other one. And I've always thought he was a pretty good actor, but I remember him the most from The Luck of the Irish. That was a terrible Irish accent, but you know what I mean. Um, and I've always liked him in some campy ass movies. Um, but I gotta say that he's playing his part in this one, and he is freaking the fuck out on this girl. He's like, "Girl, if you don't watch this," and why would this boy wait so damn long to let this girl watch the tape? I don't understand. But anyways, he waits way too fucking long. And as per tape rules, he asks his friend Emily to watch the tape, and she's just literally over there to get some ass. She wants some of that Jake Merriman ass. But he's like, just watch the film and we'll have fun after. And she's like, all right, all right. And so she turns on the film. He walks out the room like a bitch. And like, what happens if you watch it twice? Does it half the days? Does it make it 3 days? Does it Amazon Prime ship Samara to your door to get that ass faster or something like that? Like, what is the deal here? So anyway, seventh day, and asks his friend Emily to watch the tape. He briefly steps into the kitchen while Emily supposedly watches the tape. Jake receives a phone call and initially thinks it's Samara. Hello. But but is relieved to realize it is only his friend, with whom he had planned to trick Emily into watching the tape. And he's like, yeah, I got this dumb bitch over here watching the fucking video. He's like, Jesus, why you got to be an ass? So it's like instantly we don't feel bad about Jake. It's like, all right, he's kind of an asshole. And he's got this like the hair, he's got the emo Spider-Man hair. It's like, yeah, don't worry about the tape. It's just fucking crazy. It's the craziest, scariest thing you ever seen. Like, if someone gave me a fucking tape and told me it was the scariest shit I've ever seen, I think I was watching some smut film or something. And so anyways, she does the smart thing and is like covering her fucking eyes while this tape is playing. So she's not actually watching, she's more or less listening to it, I guess. But anyways, Jake receives a phone call from his friends and uh, with whom he had planned to trick Emily into watching the tape. Suddenly, Jake notices dark liquid pouring from under the kitchen door, like some fucking shit coming out of Penguin's mouth and Batman. Um, um, and runs outside to the living room, only to discover Emily got scared and closed her eyes while watching the tape. No, Emily, no. So Jake is then promptly murdered by Samara. Got that ass. Like, I mean, and we don't really feel bad for this character at this point, uh, or really like most of the characters that Samara has got. Um, because she gets a whole group of teenagers at the first movie, which we only see like one and only really care about one. Um, which her name is, I think, Becca or something like that in the first movie, which I kind of completely skipped over. It's almost completely inconsequential because when they visit Becca, she's just like not giving any information, giving hardly any information, and she's just like fucking losing her fucking mind, like, oh my god, um, because she's bear witness to Samara killing her friend Kate in the first movie. So Rachel and Aiden have moved to Astria from Seattle after sending the tape off into the ether. Rachel works at the Daily Astorian for the editor, Max Rourke, who is played by Simon Baker. Most people know Simon Baker from his mentalist role, probably, or The Devil Wears Prada, or Margin Call, one of most recently. Um, Handsome dude, not gonna lie. But knowing this guy's in this and seeing his face immediately, I'm like, this guy is one, probably love interest, two, also dead. So yeah, when I saw him, I was like, done. He's done. Any pretty boy, done. Um, So Rachel learns of Jake's death, inspecting his body only for Samara to appear. So Rachel literally goes to the scene of the crime where Jake is fucking like like in a damn bag, and she's like opening the bag, and of course we see the look of fear and tremble, and kind of what like the Joker does to people too, puts them in this like scary ass facial look and panic look. um and they're drained of their life and color, all in their skin completely gray. um so Jake's face is all fucked. He's dead as fuck in the back of this ambulance. And Rachel is just creeping her way back there, opening the bag, the body bag. And then all of a sudden, Samara's like, get your ass. And she's like trying to get him. And my fucking chair just like clicked on something that fucking scared me. I thought she got me. I was like, oh, God. So um, maybe that did scare me a little bit. So anyways, Samara comes out of the bag and she's like, got that ass. And then of course we got the handprint again, um, on Rachel. And anywhere Samara touches, basically on real people's skin, you can see how there's like bruises and how there's like finger marks, fingerprints all over them. So Samara, inspecting Jake's body only for Samara to appear, declaring that she has been looking for her. Um, Rachel breaks into Jake's house. Like, you ain't a cop. What are you doing? Got the white lady privilege over here just busting in. I'm just messing. Um, Obtaining the videotape of the cursed videotape in Jake's house and burns it. And as it's burned, the videotape, no, I'm dying. I don't know why. Like it's like the tape's like that type of shit. Um, Aiden experiences a nightmare where Samara drags him into the television. And there's several times in this movie, and I think maybe in the first one, where like Samara is coming out of the television. Well, this is all about bringing everybody into the television. You're like, ah. And when people get pulled in the television, it's like initially scary, but also goofy as hell. I don't really know. I had this problem with the first movie that it just didn't feel that scary with regards of scary horror technology and stuff like that. Like, I feel like the poltergeist of it all was about as scary as it got for me. I was just like, this is kind of ridiculous. And I think James Wan kind of handles technology, creepy technology a little bit better, with like people standing in a kitchen, and all of a sudden like random stuff will start happening, like TV will turn on in the other room, uh blender starts blending, lights start flickering. Like, I understand that's pretty easy to do from like the practical standpoint, but I'm just like, it's not all that scary all the time. And so being pulled into a television was just like, for me it wasn't all that scary. And so Aiden experiences a nightmare where Samara drags him into the television. He soon starts developing hypothermia and bruises on his arms. It's like, what the fuck is even going on? Like, how did he get hypothermia all of a sudden? And so it slowly becomes like this blame game of, let's blame Naomi Watts as Rachel. Let's blame Rachel for everything terrible that's going on with her son. And she doesn't do like the smart thing initially, like taking him to the doctor, taking him to the hospital, but like takes a fair minute for this all to happen. So at a county fair, Aiden wanders into a restroom and takes photographs of his reflection where Samara appears. And um there is some creepiness going on. Hold on. Sorry. Sorry. So there's some creepiness going on where it's a creepy ass fair. Anytime there's a fair, I always think, drain the color out, creepy as hell. I'll automatically creep. Um, but Aiden's like wandering around, like, acting all creepy and shit with these big old eyes of his, and taking photos of random people. He's got some biddies over there. He's like, "Hey, girl, come over here." Skirt, 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 skirt. He getting some fucking photos, getting some numbers. Like, what up, girl? And um, so he has some interesting photos of random people, and then he walks in the bathroom where he's washing his hands and notices the fly that's coming out of the sink. He's like, "Probably get that ass." And the fly is starting to creep him out all of a sudden, and because that was like the first thing that they would see at the video was having this fly on the film and stuff like that. And the fly was one of the biggest clues in the first ones, where you could just take the fly off of the video and you're like, oh shit, this you know taking things out of the video and making them real, that was kind of revolutionary at the time, I would assume. um but So we see the fly, and then all of a sudden he's taking photos in the mirror, and the fucking Samara is getting closer and closer to Aiden. And then of course that's going to be a reveal for later. But I was just like, oh my goodness, this is quite an effective scene. um but anyways, Samara appears and basically traumatizes the hell out of Aiden once again. The whole time this kid's just being traumatized. Rachel takes Aiden home, but they are attacked by multiple wild deer on the way, wrecking the car. And it's almost immediate that Aiden and Rachel are in the car, and he's like, don't stop. And then all of a sudden, bam, 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 like fucking all of these fucking uh deers and does and bucks and all uh these things start attacking the fucking car, straight ramming themselves into the car, which really has nothing to do with anything, in my opinion. I'm like, is this Samara's doing? What? Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? What is going on? Like, I feel like it's a little bit more confusing than anything if you act at the motivations of what's going on. Um, you're like, all right, so Samara's controlling animals or something like that. I guess that makes sense. And maybe this was in the short film that they made that didn't make it to screen or whatever. But the deer is more of like a jump scare at first, and then it becomes just like a frightening thing of having like 20 to 30 deer just surrounding the car. And I'd say the CGI doesn't work all that great, but I guess it works for the time. um but they are just fucking this car up. I don't even know how she's driving after the rest of this movie, where it just like is completely destroyed the car. uh After the stampede, Aiden's like, you better get the fuck home. I told you not to stop, bitch. You're like, you better go. Rachel. So after the stampede, Rachel returns home with Aiden and worries about his health. It is during that time that Rachel realizes that Aiden may be possessed by Samara, even though the tape feels like it has nothing to do with this anymore. It's like, what happened to 7 days? What happened to the tape? Is what I guess you're just cursed if you disturb her, I guess, at this point, because they made copies that, they're trying to spread the love to everybody else or something. Um, so, deciding not to be alone in their home, they rushed to the Daily Astrian, surprising her coworkers, including Max. Rachel then asked for his help, claiming to have lost power, so Max takes them in. I don't recall if she actually did lose power or if there was just spooky things going on at the house, which, that's fair. While Rachel is attempting to give Aiden a bath, he develops an irrational fear of water. Samara causes the water to recede from the bath, replacing Aiden with herself and terrorizing Rachel so that she tries to drown Samara. Um, so Rachel is having like flashes of like her son and Samara are like kind of flipping and changing places. And the only way to get Samara out of Aiden is like to drown her or to get her out or to kind of, I don't want to say abuse her son, but I mean, not do the greatest things to him, like put him in some water that he may not want. And there's multiple things going on here. But anyways, from the technical standpoint of watching the water, you know, I think it's Max is we're in Max's house at this point. Aiden's taking a bath. This is all before this happens. Aiden's taking a bath. Rachel goes to her house to get clothes, I believe, and stuff for Aiden. And that's when she finds out some more information about Samara. Um, and she's like, oh my goodness, I got to get back to my son, which why the fuck did you ever leave him in the first place? Um, and that's when the door closes and then the water's rushing in, washing out of the bathroom, and Max is trying to get the fuck in his house because his fucking house is about to be flooded by Samara. and um and so like as soon as that happens, um like the water, Max goes, okay, so the water is rushing out of the bathroom. Rachel comes back upstairs into Max's house when she gets back, and she's trying to bust open the door. Max goes, I guess, around the house to try to get in through the window or something like that. And by the time Rachel gets in there, she busts open the door. There is fucking all of the water is levitating to the top of the room, which I thought was a really cool image. Um, you know, Imagery of this movie. This was probably one of the most expensive parts of the movie to show all this. But then once she gets in there and Aiden is Rachel is trying to get Samara out of Aiden and stuff like that, the water comes back down, and it's like it flashes to like what's actually going on, I guess. And I mean, the whole entire room is actually wet. Max, of course, walks in late, and it looks like Rachel is trying to drown fucking Aiden. And it looks like some fucked up shit's going on. So Max enters, seeing her drown Aiden instead, and forces her to take him to the hospital, which is what he says several times. He's like, shouldn't we take him to the hospital? Shouldn't this be taken care of by professionals? And she's like, no, 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 I don't want it. They don't understand. She's starting to look crazy and stuff like that. So by this point, I'm just like, Rachel, you're looking like a really bad parent at this point. You need to take it easy. Um, so let me see, forces her to take him to the so Max forces Rachel to take Aiden to the hospital. Whilst Aiden is whilst Aiden is sleeping, he telepathically sends Rachel a vision from Samara consisting of many different images. Rachel is left with many questions about Samara's origins. And at this point, I think she's starting to realize way more about, the stuff that's going on from her background and stuff like that, and figuring out what's going on. with Samara's background and her real mother, I believe, which we eventually find out that, she's been put in like a psychiatric ward, and she's drawing up some crazy fucking drawings and stuff like that. Um, so, anyways, all while this is happening, Dr. Emma Temple, played by one of my favorite, Elizabeth Perkins. I used to have a fucking crush on Elizabeth Perkins. Still sort of do. Haven't seen her in a long time, so um, but she used to be like heartthrob back in the day. Um, and she looks amazing in this. And the thing is, she she's always kind of got this I don't want to say badass, but she is just tough as nails. I always associate her with just being really tough. Um and I think she just always plays her part to a T. So, based on Aiden's bruises and health, which do not look good on Aiden, like when he's taken out of that tub, you can see the bruises all over his back from Samara holding him down, I guess. CPS is called. Psychiatric Emma Temple shows up, Dr. Emma Temple, and concludes that Rachel is abusing Aiden. It's like, oh, fuck. It's like, I guess that would make sense, I guess, from that point. Rachel, you know why it looks like that. Rachel doesn't want to talk, but Emma reveals her knowledge of Rachel's post. Oh, sorry, her knowledge of Rachel's postpartum depression. Which I think she said it only lasted like maybe 6 months or something like that. Which the kid's like 10 at this point, so it's like she hasn't been depressed and I don't know how long. Why you got to bring up old shit? Um, so thinking that Rachel was the one harming Aiden, Emma bans Rachel from seeing him until they can speak about it more in depth. So it's like, oh shit, this is kind of a different plot line than I was expecting to happen. So looking for answers, Rachel tries to figure out, and it's scary too. Rachel's standing like next to her son, and all of a sudden you got two doctors rolling up in the back behind you, and they're like, Rachel, you got to come with us, and she's like, no, you ain't got to take me away, kind of shit. And I think she kind of handles it a little bit better than I was expecting. But, anyways, looking for answers, Rachel tries to find out who Samara's birth parents were from an adoption agency. Unfortunately, this just directs her back to the Morgans. Rachel returns to the Morgans ranch on Mesco Island. She is all set to break in until she learns that a real estate agent, um, Martin, is holding an open house. Hey, how's it going, guys? And he just bust up in there with the balloons, and he's like, "Oh yeah, everybody just the Morgans, they moved to Arizona or something like that, Phoenix, and we've just been doing a renovation of the house and type of stuff like that." And Gary Cole is a hilarious comedian. Um, Tons of things. I know him best well for like Office Space, Dodgeball, Talladega Nights, and Pineapple Express. All of those good ones. His voice is on a lot, tons of stuff too. Um, but I really like this guy. But he basically plays it a little bit campy, but he's not in the loop of how haunted this place is, or if he is, he's keeping it on the down low. A little bit skeevy, but I still like the performance he's giving. Um, so yeah, he lies about what happened to the Morgans and reveals that any furniture they left behind was sent down to the basement. So she heads down there, and she finds a mirror from the tape and many deer antlers. It's like, oh shit, that's where the deer came from. Like, how does that have any correlation to why deers would start attacking you? All right. So Samara's old toy merry-go-round, and she finds the tape. Sorry, finds the mirror from the tape, the deer antlers, Samara's old toy merry-go-round, the one that played the music in the first one, and a suitcase with a small flower inside of it. Inside is the case of Inside the case is evidence of Samara's biological mother, which I will introduce in a second. While Rachel looks for answers, Samara takes control of Aiden's body. Ying, 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 ying. Like Aiden is full on possessed, waking him up from sleep. The nurses call Emma in to speak with him. And while they talk, Samara, Samara is telepathically forces Emma to commit. So Emma's like sitting there like, now Aiden, now is your mother hurting you? And Aiden's like, my mother loves me. And it's like, hmm. Emma's like, yeah, this is a classic abuse symptoms. And as she's doing all this, she like casually grabs a needle or something like that, and doesn't fill it with anything. So she just like pulls it back with air, and then puts it to her neck. It's like, and just instant death. Samara telepathically forces Emma to commit suicide with like an air bubble, I guess, in her uh in her veins, I guess, because that can kill you, I believe. Um, which terrifies me, honestly. I don't want to get an air bubble in my shit. That just sounds scary as fuck. Um, Rachel heads to a church and learns and after that, Aiden just walks out, just grabs his coat, puts on his hat, and he's out. It's like peace. So Rachel heads to a church and learns that Samara's biological mother was named Evelyn, who showed up with no father in sight. And Evelyn is played by the great Sissy Spacek. And it's like they wanted to have big powerhouse actors from back in the day, I guess, in these movies, and they only had them for 2 days of shooting, I guess, because it feels like they are on screen maybe 10 minutes. Brian Cox being the big powerhouse actor in The Ring, and then The Ring 2 has Sissy Spacek, which both phenomenal actors, but it's just like, damn, y'all didn't do nothing with them. They were in there for a quick cameo and out. So they cashed their check and bounced. So yeah, it is also recorded that she tried to drown Samara as an infant and was subsequently committed to a psychiatric hospital. When Evelyn goes to visit, sorry, when Rachel goes to visit, and she tries to like drown Samara in in a fountain of some sort. And it's like, Jesus, this is kind of fucked up. And I think that they're showing the baby like crying, and the baby is clearly not crying. The baby's like sound asleep in the movie, but they're like, "Wah," like they're doing the crying noise and stuff like that. But they show the baby, and I don't even think the baby's crying at all. It's like, could y'all not get a baby that was crying? It was really that hard to find a crying baby. So anyways, or just shoot it so it doesn't, you obviously don't, doesn't look like that. I don't know. So when Rachel goes to visit, Evelyn is expecting her, and she is allowed uh, um, uh, immediate entry to the facility. Evelyn advises her cryptically that dreams are safe, that my baby told me to kill her, and that Rachel, let the dead get in. As Rachel leaves, I think she also says, be a good mother or something like that. It's like, really, you're gonna give me motherly advice after you just tried to drown your baby? Like, what the hell? Rachel's like, maybe I should listen to her. I'm like, what? As Rachel leaves, she asks what to do, and Evelyn replies, listen to your baby. I guess listen to Aiden. Unbeknownst to Rachel, Aiden has left the hospital, as indicated earlier, and returned to Max's house. Max arrives and is suspecting foul play, tries to secretly take photos of Aiden, just so that, we can see in the photos if you can see Samara. When Rachel returns an affectionate Aiden greets her. His behavior is seemingly out of character. The thing is, I didn't think his behavior was out of character at all. I guess the only thing was he was calling Rachel mommy, which he hasn't called her mommy in uh 2 hours of the last two films of the franchise. He refers to her as Rachel, So when he's being calling her mommy, then I assume that that's when Samara has taken over, I guess. That would be my guess. So she steps out and finds Max's corpse in the pickup truck. She's like opening up the truck and he's like completely done, completely skirt on, um, face all fucked up, just like all these other people have been. And so when Rachel falls asleep, she dreams of Aiden. Like, are they staying at Max's house at this point? And she's not calling. Does she not call the cops? Kind of forgot that, to be honest. I don't know. It's not important. Rachel falls asleep. She dreams of Aiden, who tells her that she will have to uh, exorcise Samara. When she wakes up, Rachel drugs Samara and Aiden with sleeping pills in their PB&J and puts their body in the bath, temporarily drowning Aiden in order to exorcise her. Samara leaves Aiden's body, but appears in the television. She loves that prime time. Prime time, bitch. um, Rachel allows herself to be dragged into Samara's monochromatic world while Aiden pleads with her not to go. She's like, uh, don't touch my baby any longer. Take me. And fucking she takes that ass, brings her into the television. That's your ass, Rachel. You asked for it. So pulls her in all the way into the TV and drags her all the way to the bottom of the well from the first movie. Finding herself in the bottom of the well that Samara died in, Rachel discovers that the lid is partially opened. Rachel scales the well's walls, pursued by Samara. Samara just kind of like doing Spider-Man to get her way out of the damn thing, like going up the damn wall. And it's a creepy imagery and it's some craziness happening too, but it really doesn't feel. It feels a little bit anticlimactic, a little bit like, what is the motivations are just weird for me. Like, what is the deal? Why don't you just kill Rachel immediately right off the top? I was a little bit confused about that. Samara, so Rachel escapes by climbing out of the well, even though Samara is at the bottom and trying to grab that leg, and she grabs Rachel's leg and she just kicks Samara in the face, like, get your ass, bitch, bottom of the well. And it's like, all right, I thought that we took Samara out of the well or something like that. I don't know why we're back in here, but anyways, she gets out of the well, closes the lid shut on Samara, and she's like, I think her line is right as she's closing the lid. She's like, "I'm not your fucking mommy, bitch." And fucking like closes the well on her. It's like, that was kind of dark too. I was like, normally the key is to be nice to the thing that's haunting you, not be extra mean. But okay, whatever movie. So closes the lid shut on Samara, permanently locking Samara out of her and Aiden's lives. Rachel wanders through the woods like, whoa, where am I? And begins to hear Aiden's voice. Eventually, she comes to the cliff where Anna committed suicide. It's all coming together. Um, Rachel cries before closing her eyes, still hearing Rachel cries before closing her eyes. Sounds like a 2000s Nickelback song or something like that. Still hearing Aiden's voice, she looks down into the water and then closes her eyes and jumps. In this way, she is able to return to the real world and reunites with Aiden and believes that their ordeal is finally over and pull out from the house just to see some creepy lights go boop, 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 flashing up and down to say that Samara still be lurking. And that, my friends, is The Ring 2. The ring that rang. Once again, it is a 5 out of 10 for me. Directed by Hideo Nakata, Nakata, Nakada. I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. Terrible pronunciations. Nakada. Hideo Nakata. And that is the original director of the original Ring, I believe, which, and I think the original Ring is called Ringu, Ringu. And yeah, I do kind of want to go back and look at that. He also did the Ring 2 as well. I believe he was the director for both of the Rings. And neither one of those seem to have terribly, awesome views. I guess the first one in the 98 Ringu, directed by him, is a little bit well received at a 7.2 on IMDb, as the 98 version was sitting kind of similar to how our Ring 2 is. 1999 version is rated at 5.9. The movie we just watched is sitting at a 5.4. And I can see every bit of the reason for that. It just feels like kind of more of a repeat. Still, answers aren't there with regards of why there's a VHS tape of why it's haunting people. I don't think that either one of these movies really go in depth about why this is the method of haunting. It's not really why she's doing it. I understand why she's haunting. It's the methods are weird, in my opinion, and kind of unconventional, and maybe they aren't that timely anymore because VHS tapes didn't really grow. And same thing with, it's like, if you watch this DVD, then you will be cursed. It's like, I don't know. I mixed feelings about it, but that's why we're sitting at 5 out of 10. And yeah, I'd say it'd be, if you're gonna watch either one, obviously watch the first one. But yeah, so that's my review on The Ring 2. Let me know what you thought about the movie. Let me know what you thought about the review. Let me know how I can improve. Thumbs up, subscribe. You know what to do. Support the podcast. Again, patreon.com/LuckyDog podcast to support the podcast. Keep the lights on. Keep us all going. Keep us out of the well of the scary darkness. And yeah, thank you for listening, watching LuckyDog podcast. Take it easy. Oh. Do you want to look at some ratings real quick? I know that some people like to look at some ratings. I want to see what the ratings were for this. I was about to pause the podcast and start editing out, but I do want to kind of oh wait, this is a fucking long one. Let me see if I can get a short one. 6 out of 10. That's not a bad one, from Snoopy Style on IMDb. Nice to see Aiden and Rachel, but no longer scary. Aiden and Rachel have moved to a small town in Oregon, blah, blah, blah. However, the videotape seems to have followed them after Rachel found the event. Samara starts coming after Aiden, and Rachel must dig out to pass the rest. The great thing is about the sequel is that the actors came back to finish the story. It is interesting to go back to the source interesting to go back to the source story. However, the franchise can't surprise the audience anymore, and it was a nice fresh idea in the first movie, but the sequel can't shock us anymore. It's a good wrap up. I hope that they don't keep dragging this out into other franchises. Let's see a little bit more of a whoa, not so bad, but let me see. 1 out of 10 from Feast Mode. This was in 2019. My notes. Laughably bad. It's kind of crazy how hard of a turn this second movie took. They got the director from the original Japanese version, and he does a terrible job in this movie. The biggest offense is the fact that the scary moments are not scary at all. They are so poorly done. The story is straight madness, and it is really boring. They try to make up a new mystery, but it feels forced and half-assed. It is terrible, SL terrible. And I didn't even realize I watched it when it came it first came out, probably in theaters, until I got to the bathtub scene, which was the only cool part of the movie, like I said, even though it was madness. Speaking of which, I think the director was so excited to have a larger budget for than his normal Japanese movies that he went crazy with the amounts of CGI he used. Some of the decent, some of terrible, but there was really no need for all of it. I think the first one barely had any. I think the first one had a little bit more than this guy's giving. Um, damn, 1 out of 10 by the Heartmonger in '05. Um, the Ring 2, the Hederick. Um, Naomi Watts could not save this. Not even a decent performance by herself could save this mishmash of a sequel that had the same effect on The Exorcist 2, The Hederick. By the climax, I don't want to go into spoilers. The dialogue becomes unbearably tedious, and the plot becomes atrociously obtuse. Like I said, yeah, I would agree. The film follows Rachel Keller. Da, 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 da. But then Samara shows up wanting a mommy, and that is the point of the film. All the CGI crap for absolutely nothing. And that is exactly what this film is. No, really. I am not going to dignify this film with a review worth reading. I am sure Naomi Watts would have rather changed Samara's diaper than done this film. That was funny. This film honestly has no guts, spunk, or attitude the first film had, and the film is a bunch of special effects covering up a paper thin plot. Ooh, I kind of agree. Oh, this one says a letdown after the Ring and Rings, but is still worth seeing. 8 out of 10. 2005 by Brant Sponseller. Um, yeah, I think this guy actually says the Ring is constructed as a further chapter in a novel. It will make much less sense and have far less significance if you do not watch the other films first. I kind of agree. This film feels more like a episodes 3 and 4 to the 1 and 2 episodes. That if these were episodes of things concurrently happening of the Rings, and Ring 2, I think that this would be like the latter halves of the episodes that probably would just kind of putter out a little bit. But anyways, those are some interesting reviews on it. Let me see. A suck fest. What the hell? Um, 3 out of 10 in 2020. JC Sawyer. This movie should have never left the filmmaker's mind. Totally unnecessary sequel. It tries to drag out the original premise. Instead, it presents a garbled, incoherent storyline that is so forgettable that I can't even tell you what it's about. Do not waste your time on this. Sucked. Yeah, I don't want to say that it's completely asinine, but what I'm seeing from a lot of people, that it's really not scary. And the overuse of CGI is really turning people off as well. So yeah. Thank you for listening, watching LuckyDog Podcast. Take it easy.